Hi, everybody. My name is Stacey Oliver, and I just wanted to take a few moments to help you get to know me and what my passions are, and also what my plans are for this project this semester. Just to give you a little bit about myself, I live in Anaheim, California. I'm originally from Seattle, Washington, and I attended the University of Washington where I received my bachelor's degree in Spanish and Romance linguistics. I currently work for an industrial supply company right outside of Los Angeles called McMaster Carr. I work in talent development, which basically means that I train new hires for a living. I like to consider myself somewhat of the mama bear to them as I guide them through our very extensive 6-month training process. I enrolled in the Strategic Design and Management program at Parsons because I'm interested in making a career change. Since I was a child, I've always been very interested in fashion. My best friend and I used to create fashion shows for my parents in my living room as a kid. I've been sewing since I was in elementary school, designing clothing since I was in high school, and a few years ago I discovered a new passion, which is designing textiles. After high school, I had planned to go to fashion school, but I just at that time really couldn't put all my eggs in that basket. I really wanted to do something with my life that would help the planet. And, the fashion industry can be very toxic, and I just didn't see how my contributions would help leave this planet better than I found it. So, clothing is the number 2 source of pollution in the world, second only to oil. And that's something that is just really hard to swallow when you're considering a career in that field. So I decided to leave fashion for a while, but a few years ago I was introduced to the idea of sustainable fashion, and it really intrigued me, and it gave me hope that perhaps I could marry this passion I have for creating clothing with my desire to help the planet. So I started thinking about what is essentially now my research question, which is how might we shift the culture of fashion towards something that is less harmful to the planet and is actually in some ways perhaps beneficial to the world. So I'd like to start this out by reaching out to companies who kind of hang their hat on being sustainable, whatever that means. I'd like to find out what that means in this project. It's a very broad term. So anyway, I'd like to discover what these companies are currently doing to shift the culture of fashion towards sustainability, what their plans are in the future, and where they think the greatest opportunities lie. Secondly, I'd like to reach out to designers who are interested in producing sustainable clothing lines. Maybe they're not quite there yet. I'd like to see what their struggles and roadblocks are and how perhaps we can make it easier for people to create sustainable clothing. And then I'd like to shift my focus toward consumers and really dive into, how they buy, when they buy, where and why they buy clothing, what's important to them, and how might we be able to change the social conversation about sustainable fashion. What I mean by that is it really should be enough to tell people like, hey, you should purchase, responsibly made clothing because we are trying to save the planet. It's important to save the planet. But, that it's not enough, frankly, to just tell people that and expect them to change their behavior. So, you really need to make connections with people and help them find their own reasons for getting on board with this. So, what will help change their minds about things like fast fashion and this idea that you have to have a seasonal wardrobe where you incorporate pieces that you wear for a few months and then discard and incorporate new pieces that you discard later, et cetera, et cetera. So at the end of this whole process, what I'd like to build is what I am calling a sustainable fashion conglomerate. And full disclosure, that's a term that I completely made up. But I think it accurately describes what I'm trying to do. I guess you could think of it as something similar to an incubator, like a fashion incubator. But what I'd like to do is take on up-and-coming designers and help them overcome some of the obstacles of producing a sustainable clothing line. So, for example, materials can often be very expensive. Sustainably made materials can be incredibly expensive, hard to find sometimes. Smaller businesses are often unable to purchase the minimum amount of fabric required to even purchase with these manufacturers. And if they are able to find fabric that is accessible to them and that they can afford, sometimes that fabric is of low quality. This is a problem that I've actually run into myself. I brought some examples from my own wardrobe. So this is a tank top that I have that I purchased from a farmer's market in San Diego, and it's made out of fabric that is made out of bamboo. And I don't know how clearly you can see it, but there's a giraffe wearing sunglasses on it. And the issue with this tank top is that, as you can tell, the ink has faded considerably. And the fabric itself has faded as well. You'd think that maybe I've had this for a really long time and I wear it all the time. It's not really the case. I've had it for maybe a year or so. I wear it every once in a while. And the reason I don't wear it all that often is because, you can't really see the design that's on it. Maybe you can see the sunglasses and that's about it. The second piece is this pair of shorts that I made myself. This fabric is actually made out of hemp, and it's a little hard to see, but the fabric is unraveling. These pair of shorts was actually a real big pain in the butt to construct because the fabric just kept unraveling. And I've worn these shorts a few times, washed them a few times, and the fabric is already starting to pill. That's very frustrating as somebody who designs and constructs clothing. I was just very disappointed in the quality of this fabric, and that's something that designers encounter a lot too when trying to produce a line of sustainable clothing. So in my end goal here is to provide designers with access to the best manufacturers and tools, everything that they need to create a sustainable clothing line. And I'm hoping that in providing them with an opportunity to purchase in bulk through my company, that will allow them to have better access to quality fabrics, a wider variety of options, and also allow them to have better rates than if they were to go out and individually try to purchase from these manufacturers. My end goal here is to push sustainable fashion over the hump. It's kind of a term that's been thrown around a lot for a long time, and it just really hasn't become mainstream. It hasn't become the norm, and I'd like to get it there. Right now, it's really something that is largely only available to bigger, well-established businesses instead of designers and clothing manufacturers who are smaller and just starting out. So anyway, that's about it. And I thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to working with you this semester. Thank you.